There is a sauce that separates those who cook from those who merely heat. A sauce that has survived revolution, industrialization, and the well-meaning assault of every culinary movement that has tried to render it obsolete. This is its story.
There is a color between ivory and straw, with a warmth that suggests butter without screaming it. When spooned onto a plate, the sauce flows with the viscosity of heavy cream at room temperature, forming a pool that holds its boundaries with gentle confidence.
The aroma arrives in layered sequence. First, tarragon's anise whisper, not the aggressive licorice of fennel, but something more delicate, more suggestive. Behind it, shallot's sweet sharpness, the sulfur compounds transformed through gentle sautéing into something that no longer bites but rather informs.
And underlying both, always present, butter's warm embrace. Not neutral cooking oil, but the complex, unmistakably dairy aroma of quality butter from grass-fed cattle. The diacetyl and butyric acid compounds trigger something primal in the human brain.
The experienced eye reads the sauce's appearance as immediate diagnostic. Too thin, failed emulsion. Too thick, approaching coagulation. Any separation, however slight, betrays temperature abuse. The perfect Bearnaise announces its quality through sight alone.
The texture speaks a language more precise than words. Velvety weight, neither heavy nor thin. It coats the oral cavity with what can only be described as generosity. Butterfat droplets suspended in aqueous phase, each between 1 and 10 micrometers, creating this particular mouthfeel.
The finish, what remains after the initial coating, is perhaps its most masterful achievement. Where lesser sauces leave the palate coated and weary, Bearnaise departs with clean precision, desire rather than satiety.
This is not hunger. This is the cultivated appetite of those who understand that certain pleasures demand preparation, patience, and respect.
The year was 1837. The location, the Pavillon Henri IV in Saint-Germain-en-Laye, built upon the foundations where Louis XIV had been born. The occasion, the inauguration of the railway line from Paris to Le Pec.
Jean-Louis François Collinet, chef de cuisine, faced a shallot reduction that was not proceeding as intended. Perhaps too reduced, perhaps threatening to burn. The details remain contested, but what followed was extraordinary.
He added butter to the compromised reduction, created an emulsion with egg yolks, transformed failure into foundation. This was not the invention of emulsion itself. Hollandaise existed, but the specific marriage of emulsion technique to a shallot herb reduction.
The naming carries its own weight. The bust of Henri IV, Le Grand Bearnais, watched from the dining room. The sauce would carry not the king's name directly, but the manner of his region, a tribute that acknowledges origin while claiming transformation.
That same banquet produced a second invention, the soufflé potato. Potatoes subjected to insufficient heat, then salvaged by increased temperature. Two inventions born of pressure. The railway itself, a symbol of modernity, provided fitting context for creations that honored tradition while demonstrating innovation.
That both inventions have survived, while the railway that occasioned their creation has been superseded. This testifies to the resilience of gastronomic culture. Pleasure proves more durable than transportation.
The preparation of clarified butter is not merely preliminary, it is foundational, a ritual that separates the committed from the casual. Whole butter contains water and milk proteins that threaten emulsion stability.
The slow melt requires patience that cannot be rushed.
Butter liquefies without agitation, its components gradually separating by density. The foam rises, air and moisture escaping.
The milk solids settle to the bottom. The golden fat that remains is carefully decanted.
Shallots must be minced fine almost to paste, so they will fully release their flavor during reduction and disappear into the finished sauce without textural distraction. White wine vinegar and dry white wine join the shallots. The vinegar provides direct, assertive tartness. The wine contributes depth and subtle sweetness. Together they create acidity that is layered rather than simple.
The tarragon stems are added to the reduction. Tougher than leaves, they withstand prolonged heating, releasing essential oils into the liquid. Their work complete, they are strained out. No textural reminder, only extracted essence remaining.
Reduction to nearly dry. All sec. Intensity concentrated. This is not mere evaporation, but transformation. As water departs, flavor compounds concentrate, interact, and modify. 1 to 2 tablespoons of intensely flavored liquid from initial cup measures.
Now the sabayon. This is the moment of maximum vulnerability. The yolks whisked with reduction over gentle heat. The figure-8 motion, bringing the emulsifying proteins to the threshold of coagulation without crossing it.
The ribbon stage. Lifting the whisk to draw lasting trails. The mixture falls in a continuous stream that folds back upon itself. The color shifts from bright yellow to pale gold. The volume increases. The texture transforms from liquid to foam. 65 degrees Celsius. The threshold. Exceed this, and the yolks begin to curdle. The traditional test? Ability to touch the bowl without injury. But the experienced saucier's hand knows what the thermometer confirms. The first drops of clarified butter are critical. Added too rapidly, they overwhelm. Added too slowly, they cool the mixture. Drop by drop, whisking vigorously, building the initial emulsion structure. Then the thin stream. Continuous, steady, patient.
The finishing herbs, fresh tarragon leaves and chervil finely chopped, added only when emulsion is complete and heat removed. Their volatile oils responsible for the fresh, bright character would be destroyed by prolonged heating.
There is a heresy that has spread through kitchens worldwide. The addition of Dijon mustard to Bearnaise. No early recipe, not Coulinet's, not Gouffet's 1867 version, not Dumas's 1873 inclusion, mentions mustard. It appeared in the mid-20th century, perhaps through confusion with sauce Dijonnaise.
Dijon mustard brings pungency that overwhelms the subtle balance. The shallot tarragon vinegar complex, which should provide layered, evolving acidity, is flattened by mustard's frontal attack. The result may be tasty, but it is not Bearnaise.
Then there are the shortcuts. The immersion blender produces sauce with the superficial characteristics of Bearnaise, but the mechanical emulsion creates smaller, more uniform droplets. It is sauce, but it is not craft. It is product, but it is not creation.
And the jarred abomination, stabilized with chemical emulsifiers, preserved for shelf stability. Their stability is their shame, the proof that they have sacrificed the very quality that defines the genuine article. The diner who has never experienced properly made Bearnaise has been deprived.
The most insidious effect of corruption is not the disappointment of those who know what they are missing. It is the ignorance of those who have never known. Palates adapted to mediocrity, rendering the authentic article strange rather than satisfying.
Under electron microscopy, the architecture reveals itself. Butterfat droplets 1 to 10 micrometers in diameter, suspended in a continuous aqueous phase. This size range is functionally critical. Larger droplets create graininess, smaller produce excessive thinness.
Lecithin, the molecular bridge. Egg yolk phospholipids concentrate at oil-water interfaces. Hydrophilic heads interact with aqueous phase. Lipophilic tails with oil phase, creating an oriented monolayer that stabilizes each droplet boundary.
The craft of Bearnaise is, at its foundation, manipulation of molecular behavior through macroscopic technique. Every whisk stroke is molecular engineering. Every temperature judgment is thermodynamic control.
And on the stick beside it, the Maillard reaction. Amino acids and reducing sugars at 140 to 165 degrees, creating hundreds of distinct flavor compounds. Pyrazines for nutty, roasted notes, furans for caramel sweetness, theophenes for meaty depth.
The pale gold of Bearnaise against the dark crust of Maillard brown meat. This visual contrast creates aesthetic pleasure, independent of flavor. Each enhances the other's distinctive qualities.
Before there was a system, there was magnificent chaos. Hundreds of sauces floated through French kitchens like dialects of a language nobody had formally written down. Thickened with bread or blood, perfumed with cinnamon, soured with verjuice. Every household its own rules. Then came Marie-Antoine Carême, le roi des chefs, who looked at this disorder and saw underlying structure. In 1833, he identified 4 mother sauces from which all others could be derived. Not merely classification, but revolution.
Carême's 4 pillars: allemande, bechamel, espagnole, velouté. What is remarkable, viewed from our perspective, is what he excludes. No hollandaise, no emulsion sauce among his mothers. The egg butter emulsion was known but not yet canonized.
The allemande, German sauce, was Carême's leading preparation, but history intervened. After the Franco-Prussian War of 1870, everything German became toxic in French culture. The word allemande on a French menu had become uncomfortable, a reminder of defeat in the language of pleasure.
Escoffier's solution was elegant. He reclassified allemande as a derivative and elevated 2 new preparations to mother status, hollandaise and sauce tomate. The emulsion at last given the recognition that decades of practice had established it deserved.
Bechamel, the most nurturing and democratic. Roux and milk, nothing more. Named for the Marquis de Nointel, though whether he invented the sauce or merely had it named as courtly flattery remains beautifully disputed.
Espagnole, dark, complex, laborious, built over days from brown stock, mirepoix, and tomato? Why Spanish? Nobody truly knows. The theories range from implausible to absurd. What matters is the sauce itself, the color of autumn leaves, the mother of demi-glace.
And then, hollandaise, standing apart from her roux-based siblings in technique, temperament, and terror. The saucier who masters the roux mothers has demonstrated competence. The saucier who masters hollandaise has demonstrated artistry under fire. Saucier's education proceeds through these mothers in order of difficulty. Bechamel first, for forgiveness. Velouté second, for judgment. Espagnole third, for patience. Hollandaise always last, because it demands everything at once.
The name hollandaise, Dutch sauce, is one of the most enduring misnomers in culinary history. The sauce is not Dutch. Its original name was sauce Isigny, after the Normandy commune renowned for butter of extraordinary quality. One theory holds that returning Huguenots brought back a creamy butter sauce from Dutch exile, a French technique that had traveled to Holland, evolved there, and returned wearing a foreign accent. The name followed the exile, not the invention. The earliest documented ancestor appears in La Varenne's Le Cuisinier François of 1651. asparagus with a fragrant sauce of good fresh butter, a little vinegar, salt, nutmeg, and an egg yolk to bind. The essential architecture, 3.5 centuries before Escoffier.
The critical divergence between Hollandaise and Bearnaise lies in their acid. Hollandaise uses lemon, bright, direct, a single note. Bearnaise uses a reduction of vinegar, wine, shallot, and tarragon, a chord where Hollandaise plays a note. This is not substitution. This is transformation of genus.
Hollandaise is aromatically almost silent. Butter and lemon with a whisper of white pepper. This silence is not deficiency but design. The blank canvas that makes its derivatives possible. The unadorned stage upon which other sauces take their places.
Bearnaise fills that silence with a full symphony. Tarragon's anise signature, Cherville's delicate overlay, shallot's sweetness, the ghost of wine and vinegar, all built into the foundation through reduction, integrated at the molecular level so that no element can be separated from the whole.
Despite Bearnaise's greater complexity, and for many, greater appeal, Hollandaise remains properly the mother. The simpler preparation precedes the complex. The note must come first, however much the symphony exceeds it in interest.
Mrs. Isabella Beeton, writing in 1861, approached Hollandaise with characteristic Victorian confidence. She instructed the cook to add a half teaspoon of flour, a stabilizing cheat that professional sauciers would find unforgivable, but that household cookery demanded.
The 17th century cook worked without thermometers, without scientific understanding of emulsion, relying entirely on sensory feedback and accumulated experience to navigate the narrow window between failure and success. Hans knew what chemistry would later explain.
Sauce mousseline, Hollandaise given the condition of cloud. Whipped cream folded in at the last moment, gentle enough to preserve the air that distinguishes it from its heavier parent. The name suggests lightness, suggests the fine fabric prized for its translucency.
Sauce Maltaise! Hollandaise transformed by the crimson juice of Maltese blood oranges. Sunset gold shot through with ruby. A sauce that seduces the eye before the palate, its appearance promising something exotic, something beyond the ordinary.
Sauce Noisette, named for the hazelnut whose color and aroma it shares. Butter heated past clarification until the milk solids undergo Maillard browning. The same proteins that clarification removes become, through controlled browning, the source of flavors clarified butter can never achieve.
Now we come to Bearnaise's own children, the grandchildren of Hollandaise. Coron, Foyot, Paloise. Each takes the mother's complex architecture and adds one defining element. Each tells its own story. Some are still alive. Others exist only in the memory of old books.
Sauce Coron bears the name of a chef who fed Paris elephant during the Prussian siege of 1870. Alexandre Choron of restaurant Voisin composed a Christmas menu of stuffed donkey head, elephant consommé, and kangaroo stew, haute cuisine under siege. His tomato béarnaise proved the more durable legacy. Sauce Foyot, named for the restaurant on the Rue de Tournon that served Paris's literary and political establishment for 90 years. When it closed in 1938, something irreplaceable was lost. The sauce remains. Bearnaise deepened with concentrated meat glaze, approaching the threshold of overwhelming intensity.
Sauce Poloise occupies the most philosophically complicated position. Named for Pau, the capital of Béarn itself. Mint replaces tarragon, and the sauce from Béarn's own capital is considered heresy by those who worship the sauce that carries Béarn's name. The paradox delights sauciers and confounds purists.
And then the forgotten ones. Tyrolienne, warm mayonnaise with Bearnaise's soul. Arlésienne, anchovy and tomato making Bearnaise Provençal. Rachel, the rarest. combining meat glaze and tomato both, virtually extinct, existing only in historical references.
The family tree, once full and flourishing, has been pruned by economics, by haste, by the disappearance of the dedicated saucier. Mousseline thrives. Noisette has found a bistro home, but Foyo is nearly extinct. Divine is a museum piece. The branch is thin.
The cook who understands this tree, who can move freely among its branches, selecting the precise preparation for each occasion, possesses a vocabulary of flavor sufficient for virtually any pairing challenge. This is what it means to be a saucier.
Sauce moutarde presents a delicious irony. Mustard in hollandaise is legitimate. Even celebrated, the pungency works with lemon simplicity. The same mustard in Bearnaise is corruption. The more complex the base, the less it tolerates additional strong flavors.
In a development that would have astonished Collinette and horrified Escoffier, Bearnaise sauce has become one of the most consumed sauces in Scandinavia. Steak, fries, and Bearnaise. The Nordic national comfort food, available on every weeknight table and summer barbecue.
The path of adoption traced through French-trained Scandinavian chefs who returned home with classical technique, and the particular affinity between Bearnaise's buttery character and the Nordic appetite for dairy-heavy flavors. Excellent Scandinavian butter from grass-fed cattle spoke naturally to these palates.
The historical path traces through French-trained Scandinavian chefs who returned home bearing classical technique like a sacred flame. They found in Nordic palates, raised on cream, on butter, on dairy's warm embrace, a natural audience for the richest sauce in the French canon.
The most startling manifestation: Bearnaise as pizza topping. In Sweden, drizzled over finished pizza with the casualness Americans apply ranch dressing. A warm emulsion designed for immediate consumption at precise temperature, applied to baked flatbread. The cosmological order disturbed.
The saucier who has spent years learning to maintain emulsion under fire may view tube Bearnaise with contempt, and that contempt is not without justification. But the family at the grill, squeezing from a tube, is participating in something Collinette himself might recognize: the pleasure of butter and herb with grilled meat.
The Nordic Bearnaise industry has achieved a scale no French producer has attempted. Squeeze tubes alongside ketchup, powder packets, add water, stir, shelf-stable jars that would survive a nuclear winter. The name Bearnaise delivered through stabilizers and artificial flavorings.
What is lost in this transformation is everything that defines Bearnaise's craft. The precariousness, the attention, the moment-to-moment judgment, the unrepeatable signature of the maker's hand. What is gained is access. The trade-off recapitulates the fundamental tension of food itself.
Yet the flavors, butter, tarragon, shallot, vinegar, are universally appealing regardless of temperature or context. A testament to the robustness of the original formulation, even when removed from its designed conditions. Collinette built something that endures even in forms he could never have imagined.
Fernan Point, chef of La Pyramide, distilled the essence. A Bearnaise is only an egg yolk, a shallot, a little tarragon. But it takes years of practice before the result is perfect.
The first stage is watching. Weeks or months before touching ingredients, the apprentice observes. Mental models forming. Expectations being built. The master, aware of being watched, performs with heightened attention.
The first attempt is inevitably disappointing. The hand unaccustomed to continuous whisking tires quickly. The judgment of temperature, untrained by experience, proves unreliable. This failure is necessary. The humiliation of failed Bearnaise is necessary preparation for the satisfaction of eventual success.
The Nouvelle Cuisine revolution of the 1970s launched a direct assault on classical sauces.
lighter preparations, natural flavors unmasked by heavy sauces. Bearnaise, rich, buttery, demanding, became collateral damage. Sauce stations were eliminated. Dedicated sauciers were dismissed.
The knowledge pipeline suffered most. If there are no saucier positions, there are no apprentice sauciers. If there are no apprentices, there are no masters for the next generation. The embodied knowledge, the feel for temperature, the instinct for rescue, disappears with its last practitioners.
Hundreds of sauces, thousands of whisk strokes, the hand learning what the mind cannot articulate, the precise resistance of properly thickened sabayon, the visual sheen of optimal emulsion, the aromatic moment when reduction achieves its purpose.
There comes a moment of grace, when the sauce that emerges from the apprentice's hand is no longer merely acceptable, but genuinely good, indistinguishable from the master's own. This is the transition from student to practitioner. Then something unexpected. Young chefs who had trained in the modernist tradition found themselves drawn to the classical preparations they had been taught to despise. The neo-bistro movement of the 2000s and 10s, and Bearnaise stood at the center of this rediscovery.
Le Relais de l'Entrecôte, the Parisian institution that serves exclusively steak frites with a mysterious green sauce related to the Bearnaise family. No menu, no choice. One dish executed with obsessive consistency. Its perpetual cues prove that sauce, as the center of dining, has never disappeared, merely been underserved.
The steak frites Bearnaise Trinity became the defining dish of neo-bistro identity. A statement that classical craft remained relevant, that the supposed obsolescence of heavy sauces had been ideology rather than reality. The old ways had not failed. They had merely been abandoned.
The sauce travels the world. In American steakhouses, it signals seriousness. In Japanese kitchens, it achieves consistency, approaching perfection. Wagyu's extreme fat, demanding its acidic balance. In Argentina, it meets asado culture, chimichurri's rival.
Each service is a renewal. The sauce does not remember yesterday's success. Each batch must be made with the same attention, the same vigilance, the same willingness to begin again if necessary.
A machine could produce technically perfect Bearnaise with greater consistency than any human, but it could not produce the particular satisfaction of emulsion held under pressure, the vulnerability, the flow state, the private satisfaction of craft. That is not weakness. It is essential character.
The guest's face, when the sauce succeeds, there is a particular expression, recognition, pleasure, surprise. It cannot be elicited by shortcut or approximation. It responds only to the real, to the perfect, to the achieved.
The sauce will survive as it has survived every previous assault because it embodies something that efficiency cannot replicate and convenience cannot replace. The demonstration that human attention, applied with skill, can transform simple materials into extraordinary experience.
Bearnaise is not merely a preparation but a practice. Not merely a recipe but a relationship. The ongoing conversation between human skill and natural material that constitutes the deepest meaning of cooking. To make it well is to participate in something that extends beyond any individual life.